Hello Midnights. We hope you enjoy our stories. Next up, The Ghost in the Archives, a critical examination of the unverified 1929 Salerno UFO and Humanoid Incident. Let us know where you are listening from, and don't forget to subscribe. The purported 1929 UFO and humanoid encounter in Salerno, Italy, is a curious footnote in the annals of ufology. Unlike well-documented later cases, this incident remains largely a mystery, a narrative supported by little mainstream evidence. A critical examination reveals that its significance lies not in its veracity, but in its plausibility as a suppressed event. The authoritarian and censorial climate of Fascist Italy provides the primary historical mechanism that would have inevitably removed all public records. The incident is, thus, a ghost in the archives, symbolizing the missing pieces of early global ufology. To understand why the Salerno 1929 report is so enigmatic, one must recognize that the modern concept of the unidentified flying object UFO did not exist in 1929. The terminology and cultural framework for interpreting anomalous aerial phenomena were fundamentally different. Before 1947, unexplained aerial sightings were typically filed under mystery airships or simply strange lights. Descriptions of the occupants, or humanoids, lacked the later standardization seen with the ubiquitous grays, often describing figures that resembled gnomes, mechanical men, or simply tall men in strange outfits. This variety suggests that the reported appearance of the occupants was heavily influenced by local folklore, cultural motifs, or existing narratives. The most relevant background to the Salerno case is the political environment of Fascist Italy, 1922 to 1943. Benito Mussolini's regime was authoritarian and highly centralized, characterized by an intense focus on military and technological superiority and the projection of the new Roman Empire myth. In this climate, any unusual aerial sight would have been instantly categorized as either a potential threat, a grave security leak, or an event that challenged the regime's self-proclaimed mastery over science. This necessity to protect the regime's ideological authority by controlling all information mandated absolute secrecy and military sequestration. This climate of censorship is the primary historical mechanism supporting the suppression hypothesis for the Salerno case, providing a rational political explanation for the current lack of a public record. The intellectual framework for believing in early Italian UFO events is known as Clipeology, which focuses on the historical study of unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, potentially suppressed by the fascist regime. This framework is supported by circumstantial evidence, namely the alleged creation of Cabinet RS-33, Gabinetto RS-33, a purported secret government department to investigate and recover crashed aerial craft starting around 1933. The establishment of this dedicated secret task force only a few years after the unverified Salerno report is the strongest circumstantial evidence that a prior major event may have provided the catalyst for systematic investigative protocols. The 1933 Magenta crash allegation serves as a crucial precedent. If the Salerno event occurred, it would have been subject to the same protocols as Magenta: immediate military scrutiny and sequestration and secrecy. This established trend of information control directly explains the current lack of a public record, as any recovered non-human entities, NHEs, the contemporary term for the occupants, would have been classified immediately. To fully dissect the Salerno case, one must address the primary source problem: the unverified nature of the original document or witness testimony. The Salerno account did not emerge from a contemporary official document, but allegedly through second-hand or third-hand sources decades later. The narrative gained prominence largely through the work of key Italian ufology figures like Roberto Pinati and Alfredo Lissoni. These researchers, who champion the Clipeology approach, claim to have accessed accounts, possibly including military testimony or leaked internal papers. Critically, these sources are not independently verifiable in public archives, leaving the story reliant on the credibility of the proponents and the plausibility of their sources. This methodological reliance on non-public, anecdotal, or heavily filtered information is what forces the analysis away from factual verification and toward the political science of censorship, as the story's existence, is a testament to the failure of official historical documentation, while the suppression hypothesis provides a plausible political explanation for the lack of evidence. A rigorous critical examination must thoroughly address the methodological and logical counterarguments that challenge the very foundation of the Salerno case's significance. The simplest and most academically sound position rejects the event entirely, favoring mundane explanations. Non-existence, misidentification. The most parsimonious argument is that the event never occurred or was merely a misidentification of a conventional object. Numerous phenomena in 1929, such as experimental aircraft, weather balloons, or astronomical events, could be mistakenly interpreted as anomalous aerial craft and would not warrant a state-level cover-up. Post 1947 fabrication and cultural retrofitting. The narrative details of the Salerno story likely suffer from cultural retrofitting. Critics argue that the Salerno account has been contaminated by later ufological concepts provided by the post-World War II flying saucer culture, rendering the 1929 date misleading. Local isolation and bureaucratic inertia. The claim of a state-level cover-up may be an overestimation of the event's importance. Critics argue that an isolated, unconfirmed sighting might have been handled by local authorities, filed as an incidente ignoto, unknown incident, and simply forgotten due to bureaucratic inertia. The most significant criticisms are directed not at the fascist regime, its capacity for secrecy, but at the logic used by proponents. The argument from silence fallacy. The primary criticism is that the thesis relies on the argument from silence, argumentum ex silentio, where the absence of evidence is treated as evidence of a cover-up. The analysis counters this by clarifying that the argument is not about the UFO's definitive existence, but about the mechanism of its disappearance, using the documented historical fact of fascist information control to explain the absence of a public record. Reliance on unverified precedents. The analysis uses the alleged 1933 Magenta crash and the alleged creation of Cabinet RS-33 to establish a precedent for secrecy. Critics argue that relying on one set of unverified claims to support the plausibility of another unverified claim creates a weak chain of circular reasoning. The analysis defends this by asserting that the Magenta story's value is illustrative, not factual, used to demonstrate the historical precedent for extreme military secrecy within the fascist regime. This topic is viewed differently across various disciplines. Skeptical scientists treat the claim as unfalsifiable. Mainstream historians are typically dismissive, demanding established, verifiable documentary evidence, and general public audiences often find the narrative compelling due to the dramatic conspiratorial element. The implications of the unverified Salerno 1929 incident extend far beyond ufology, challenging established narratives in history, technology, and international relations. The primary short-term consequence of a verified 1929 sighting would be the reinforcement of the secrecy apparatus within Fascist Italy. A confirmed encounter would have been deemed a grave national security failure and an existential threat to the regime's propaganda. The state would have used the event to justify and expedite the creation of ultra-secret bodies, providing the urgent raison d'etre for the alleged cabinet, RS-33, and cementing a policy of official state denial decades before similar protocols were allegedly established in the United States. The long-term implications are revolutionary, requiring a comprehensive revision of modern chronologies and narratives. Revision of UFO chronology. If proven, Salerno 1929 would become one of the earliest documented close encounter with humanoids cases involving alleged material recovery. This discovery would fundamentally restructure the history of the phenomenon, moving the start date of the extraterrestrial contact narrative back by nearly 2 decades from the pivotal 1947 events, challenging the theory that the modern UFO era is a purely post-nuclear Cold War phenomenon. Historical revisionism, challenge to established narratives, verification, would provide evidence that the world's most powerful nations, starting with Fascist Italy, were secretly aware of and attempting to exploit advanced non-terrestrial technology before World War II. This would alter the narrative of 20th century technological history and raise critical questions about international espionage, making Salerno the earliest data point in the secret history of global UAP recovery and reverse engineering. Ultimately, the Salerno 1929 incident endures not as a verifiable, historical fact, but as a potent symbol of epistemological uncertainty. The ghost in the archives is not merely a metaphor for a missing document. It represents the silenced voice of the original witness. Under the totalizing grip of fascist censorship, the personal experience of an anomalous event was immediately co-opted, neutralized, and criminalized by the state. The case serves as a chilling testament to the power of a totalitarian regime to control not just the present, but the past and future perception of reality. Whether the event was an alien spacecraft or a meteorological anomaly, the subsequent state reaction confirms a crucial historical dynamic. The fascist regime was willing to expend significant resources to suppress any data, real or imagined, that threatened its ideological narrative of power. Thus, the Salerno story functions as a historical warning, illustrating how government secrecy transforms potential history into enduring, irresolvable myth.